Judges, please introduce yourselves.
Okay, hi, my name is Miriam Marcidegi. I participated in We the People the very first year it was offered. That was on the bicentennial of the U.S. Constitution. I currently serve on the board of directors of the Center for Civic Education. And I have spent a lot of my career focused on providing civic education to people living in Iran, where I'm originally from.
Go ahead.
Right. My name is Michael DePiro. I work for the state of Florida, the Florida Department of Education. And since you are from Illinois, I would like to let you know that it is 73 degrees here.
Hi, my name is Tandy McConnell, and while Miriam was introducing herself, I was calculating her approximate age based on 1980. Never mind. I spent about 20 years as a professor of history at Columbia College in South Carolina. Then a few years ago, I decided to do something more interesting than that. I became a high school history teacher, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'm always honored to be at We the People. I've been doing this for several years, and it's the highlight of my year.
Mike, did you or everybody introduce themselves already?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, students, could you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, we're excited to testify for you today. My name is Vanessa Puentes.
I'm Kareem Alvarado.
My name is Alani Torres. We are coached by teacher Mr. Zach Maslenka, and we represent Chicago Hope Academy.
Thanks to your teacher.
Zach, I thought you were a student. Get out of here.
Great, great. All right, so it's Unit 1, Philosophical Historical Foundations of the American Political System. The question is the first one, and it's a quote by Benjamin Rush. The American War is over, but this is far from being the case with the American Revolution. To what extent, if any, did revolutionary principles influence constitution making during the founding period? What problems, if any, does the principle of consent present when creating or amending constitutions? To what extent, if any, are revolutionary principles evident in modern times? Please begin.
Revolutionary principles of popular sovereignty, liberty, government, and the rule of law influenced the Constitution during the Revolutionary era. Colonists fought for these principles in order to create their own government. As a result of their efforts, the framers used these principles in creating the Constitution. Revolutionary principles are clearly stated in the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that secure these rights. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The purpose of the Declaration of Independence was to separate from the government that the colonists did not consent to. Citizens must consensually surrender their rights to the government in order to receive protection. As Rousseau states, what a man loses by a social contract is his natural liberty and unlimited rights to everything he tries to get and succeed in getting. What he gains is civil liberty and the proprietorship of all he possesses. In order for the people to consent, it's necessary that the revolutionary principles were made evident to the Constitution. Anti-federalists argue that the Constitution suppresses natural rights and gives the federal government too much power. The failures of the Article of Confederation show a stronger central government was necessary for the people. The strength of the federal government within the Constitution allows the United States to uphold revolutionary principles.
The principle of consent does not present problems when creating or amending constitutions. The amendment process ensures that both federal and state governments consent in order to prevent being taken advantage of. The process also ensures that amendments are ratified only if necessary to the Constitution. The principle of consent gives the government permission to rule the governed. It is seen in the preamble of the Constitution, which states, "We the people of the United States do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." The amendment process is explained in Article 5 of the Constitution. It is a two-step process in which amendments are proposed by both houses of Congress and ratified by the states. This process is lengthy in order to receive an overwhelming support of the nation. Some would argue that the principle of consent presents problems when creating or amending constitutions because it could cause delays to change. Any change to the Constitution that affects the rights of the people and the powers of the government should funnel through a system of checks and balances to protect the rights of the governed.
Revolutionary principles such as limited government, and the rule of law are evident in modern times. These principles form the basis of the country structure of government. Limited government is achieved through the division of power among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. These branches form checks and balances on each other to limit the government. Limited government and popular sovereignty are also evident in the Bill of Rights 6, which restricts government action for people. Citizens exercise their freedom of expression most commonly through social media. Right to protest was common in the revolutionary era, and the way that this is evident today is through people voicing their opinions virtually. Issues such as racial injustice and police brutality have spread rampant in modern times through social media. Furthermore, the principle of popular sovereignty is also evident through multiple election reforms that we have seen through the Constitution. People have the freedom to elect their senators, representatives, and presidents. The revolutionary principle of popular sovereignty gives power to the people. These principles are beneficial to you because they protect people and government from tyrannical oppression. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you. As far as consent goes, do you agree that civil disobedience is a way of showing consent or the lack of consent? And what about if disobedience is not civil? In other words, what if it's violent? Would you still agree?
Based on the Declaration of Independence, it states that the citizens must do anything necessary to be able to get that feeling that to consent to the government, they have to do like whatever they can to like what they feel like is best for the government. And yeah, in the Declaration of Independence, it stated that the citizens could do whatever they can to get that from the government if they don't feel like they are getting that type of what's that word? I'm sorry, getting that
Accountability?
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Any other opinions on the team about the same issue?
Yes, my peers and I do believe civil disobedience is necessary to protect the rights of the people, especially in cases where they might be taken advantage of, because we have the people do have the power to because we as the people have the power to speak up and use our rights to protect our freedoms, especially since we have consent of governed, so government is governing the people based on what the people want. So civil disobedience is necessary. And in terms of violent civil disobedience, there is a thin line.
Yeah. Okay.
Elena, did you mean to mute yourself there?
Yes.
Okay. Next question.
We were talking about civil disobedience, and that was which leads us to some interesting problems. Now where that question was going to go. If I totally and completely disagree with the government, and I completely and totally disagree with the law, and I break that law publicly and challenge the government to arrest me, I'm arrested, I go to trial, and my defense is I was compelled by my conscience to break this law. I had no choice. And I've got a few people who I was met who did that. One was a Catholic priest named Philip Berrigan, who that was his argument, that I had no choice but to break this law. If you're on the jury, should you find him guilty for breaking the law, or should you be able to say that no, your conscience, you are following your conscience, doing what you knew was right, so therefore we're not going to punish you? Which should you think we should do with somebody who uses civil disobedience and breaks the law, but does so for motives we might agree with?
I'm sorry, could you restate your question, please?
I'm not sure if I could. What should we do with someone who breaks the law, and we know they broke the law and they say they broke the law, but their defense is that they were doing it out of conscience? Should we punish them, or should that be a defense that says, okay, we understand, we're not going to put you in jail because your motive was good? What do you think we should do in that situation?
In terms of civil disobedience, people do feel like their last resort is civil disobedience because of their conscience and because they do disagree with how something is currently being ran. So that argument is completely valid, but it also depends on whether or not civil disobedience was necessary for that instance.
Okay, so but you're the jury, and you've got to decide what you're going to do with them. And they didn't do any violence, but they broke the store. The guy I know, he broke into it was during the Vietnam War, broke into the draft office and burned the draft office's records. Didn't hurt anything, just burned the records. There was an act of protest. Should he have gone to jail because his motivation was good? We might agree with his motivation, but we still know he broke the law. What are you going to do with him?
I would honestly put him into jail because under habeas corpus, that prevents the government from sending people unlawfully, like imprisoning people without reason or court. But since this person broke the law, then it is just right to put him into jail for what he has done.
So he broke the law. He knew that was a risk he was taking. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Good response.
All right. So you mentioned social media in regard to consent of the governed. So this question's two parts, however you want to take it. Do you believe social media is an accurate representation of the consent of the governed? And what do you believe is the most accurate representation of the consent of the governed?
I don't believe that social media is like the most accurate representation of the governed, since not everything is put out on social media, but people are able to, it is like a way for people to show what they believe in, like practice like their First Amendment. And it is like one of the most popular ways today. I don't think it is the most accurate representation.
So if and I guess the second part was, what is the most accurate representation? So if I'm a politician, I see social media and some other examples of consent of the governed, what should I put the most weight into? For instance, okay.
I think the most accurate representation of consent of the governed would be how people, like, who they vote for, like in elections, because that reflects like their beliefs. And yeah, that's.
And just 1 minute. Other judges, do you want me to do a follow-up, or would you like to take a question?
Sure, go ahead.
So voting being the most accurate representation of the consent of the government, as you stated there, how does that vote if you only have 50% voter turnout? What does that say about the consent of the governed to the government? Are the other 50% or so giving consent by not voting?
Not everyone is like active in like politics, so not many people like voice their opinion on like the government. So like that, like other 50% that are active and like vote are like the people that don't like speak up are still like consenting in a way.
Time.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for thinking on your feet. Thank you for the hard work that it took to get here and to be really present and working as a team. I think you showed a willingness to really think about what you think about each question and how it pertains to our contemporary, our current reality, why these questions are important. And so you should be commended for that. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yep, I do like in your opening statement how you did, and that's why I latched onto it. Did mention social media because that shows your thinking in regard to change over time. And that does speak to the second part of the question, how these principles are evident in modern times. And if I were to give you a little bit of feedback moving forward, when you see something like that and you have the spin on like, hey, this social media affects our principles in a certain way, try to use that as an entry point to dive a little bit deeper into how that change over time sits with the Constitution, a document that was written over 230 years ago, and see if you could reconcile the modern version of consent versus whatever the case is in the Constitution. But thank you very much. I really do enjoy speaking with you.
And I would say the same thing. Wonderful job, wonderful presentation. One just nuts and bolts idea on the presentation. As you're doing the initial presentation, slow down, breathe. Every time you see a period, stop and breathe. If you'll slow down like that, you will be amazed at how you get less nervous because you're in control. I mean, I'm old. It takes me, I have to slow down just to be able to hear what other people are saying. And what you were saying there was really wonderful, really well written, really well thought out. We had a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad to be able to spend time with you guys today. This was great.
Hey, so you are not the only group today or in the history that we've given that same feedback to, just to slow down. So I think it's just so you know.
Wonderful job, guys. We want to commend you and thank you for being here and for participating. So great job in what was a difficult year. So we will be